Happy Thursday, everybody. Another day, another full out chat. I am your host, Steve Solberg. Welcome again to another episode here. We're very excited to have Christa Sanford, who's about to join us here in a couple minutes. She is the Coed coach at the University of Alabama. She is also an assistant coach for the U.S. National Coed team, former head coach at Shelton State, and also a Moorhead alum. We're gonna have the Moorhead thing going here for a couple of days. Very excited to interview her and to really hear her story, how she got into cheerleading, how she ended up at Moorhead, how she ended up in Alabama. I've met Christa many times before, and but never really got to hear her story. So very excited to hear her story. But before we can go full out, we got to have some music. So I think it's time that we go full out.
Are you ready? Full out chats. Do you know what time it is? We got the way, we got the vision, you lose the sight. We will never stop. We got the drums here. What time is it? Oh, I'm alive in 5, 6, 7, 8.
All right, with the music, that means we are full out again. Special thank you to cheeranddancemusic.com for making our intro. Again, thank you, cheeranddancemusic.com, for that intro music. Excuse me. Again, we are here live and with Christa Sanford, Coed coach, University of Alabama. Christa,
Hi.
how are ya?
Good. I like the music.
Well, thank you. You can thank Mark Coleman for that.
Yes.
There we go. Do you hear me all right?
Yes. Do you hear me?
I do. You can maybe just speak up a little louder. That just
Okay.
Otherwise you're good to go. But thank you again for taking the time to join me today and for us to hear your story. I know we've met many times throughout the years, but I never really got to hear your story. I just know, kind of what probably everybody knows is you cheered at Moorhead and then coached there for a little bit before going down and taking over an awesome program in Shelton State, and then getting obviously the unbelievable opportunity to coach at the University of Alabama. And so, like I ask everybody, let's just start from the beginning. Where did you grow up? If you want to talk about your family life and kind of how you ended, how did you get into cheerleading? What was a memory that kind of got you into it? And then just kind of go from there. So kind of just start from the beginning for us.
Okay. Well, I don't think I'm as interesting as some of your other guests, but I'm going to give you my short little story. I grew up in Kentucky, in a little town called Worthington, Kentucky, which is in the county of Greenup. It's in Greenup County. I did not attend Greenup County High School. I went to a little high school called Raceland High School. Just a little school, but, as in a lot of schools in Kentucky, as a little girl, you decide what you want to do, and cheerleading was mine. But I also wanted to dance. I wanted to tumble. I wanted to do a little bit of everything, gymnastics. And so as I wanted to do everything, my mother gave me, kind of the ultimatum, like, you can cheer and be a power tumbler, or you can dance and be a gymnast. And so I chose the cheer and power tumbling. So I was a power tumbler as well in growing up in my high school career or younger career and into high school. And then, it just progressed from there to where I, was blessed to be a part of the UCA staff and, was a Moorhead State cheerleader. And, I'm now in Alabama. So great, awesome story.
But so I mean, obviously you grew up in what I would say definitely is one of the hotbeds of cheerleading. I mean, the state of Kentucky, I think, is obviously in our industry extremely well known for, really, like I said, just producing unbelievable talent, unbelievable teams, from middle school, high school, all-star, everything is just unbelievable. I mean, kind of explain that. I mean, you growing up in like, even though you didn't go to Greenup County, which is obviously, if anybody knows anything about high school cheerleading, Greenup County High School is, one of the originators and unbelievable program. I mean, kind of how was it growing up? Like, I mean, could you avoid it? I mean, is there any way that you were not going to be a cheerleader?
For me, I would say no. I had an older cousin too that, all she did was, every time we were together, she was tumbling in the front yard. And that's really kind of how I got started in tumbling, is because whatever she did, I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom was like, you're going to hurt yourself if I don't, because I had no fear. I was going to try it. If she
Mm-hmm.
jumped and flipped backwards, I was going to jump and flip backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I got into the tumbling portion of it,
Yeah.
which then progressed into cheerleading. But no, I mean, with Greenup County around, even though I didn't go there, I had such an admiration just for their school, and Candy, who was still, Candy Berry, who is
Mm-hmm.
still, the legend there, who is
Yep.
still the queen of cheerleading to me for definitely that area. But to me in high school, she was leading the way then, very, for me at a young age, and I'm not going to say my age now, but, so now, and she's still such an icon, for cheerleading in that area. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, I had such an admiration for that, even without not going to that school. I wanted to still, be like those cheerleaders. I wanted to have that same heart, and that same drive that they did, even though I didn't go to a school that was competitive or did anything, similar to Greenup County. But
Mm-hmm.
it was in our county, it was in our area, it was in our state. So, and obviously looking to the future of, great programs such as Morehead State, the University of Kentucky, the University of Louisville,
Mm-hmm.
they were all very, very strong. And so that was also what I had to look forward to,
Mm-hmm.
as a young child.
So when you got into cheerleading, I mean, game day only then? Did not compete while you were in
No,
middle school or high school?
I did competitive power tumbling,
Yep.
but I was not a competitive cheerleader
Okay.
In high school. No.
Mm-hmm. So then how did you end up at Morehead? I mean, because clearly at the time, I mean, kind of tell me, I mean, when you were looking at Morehead, I mean, was Morehead a school you were looking at no matter what? Or was it kind of because of you knew of the cheer program? Kind of just how did you even hear about Morehead, and how did you get into Morehead?
Well, really, my first year of college, I went to a local community college in Ashland, Kentucky, and I did staff. I did UCA staff, so my first year. And so it was really through meeting people on staff of finding out where, what would be best for me. If I moved away from home, although Morehead State was 45 minutes, Lexington is 2 hours. Sorry,
No, it's okay.
I'm at our office. And
The joys of a live show.
The joys of life, yeah. And so just my first year on staff and kind of learning myself through the college life and academically, that's kind of where Morehead State came up. And then they were going to perform in Ashland, Kentucky, at Ashland Paul Blazer High School. And my best friend and I, we had talked about it. It was right before nationals, and I had reached out to Myron and just was like, "Hey, I'm interested in trying out." But he even was like, "Oh, Christa, I've heard your name," and I think it was from some staff people. He was like, "I would love for you to come to this performance so we could meet each other." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, Myron Doan, he knew my name. Like, what? How is this? And so I went to that performance, and I mean, I don't know. I can't even remember what they did. All I did was see them in uniform. I shook Myron's hand, and that was it for me. That's what I was doing. I don't know if they did back tucks, toss stretches. I couldn't tell you one thing, but just meeting them, laying my eyes on them and being welcomed was a hit for me. And that's where I knew I was going to go from that point. And then literally after that weekend, I had made the connections and then just started, stunning. I know some of them came you know, to my house. I went to Moorhead, which is only 45 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
So, and at that point, that's where the journey started for me. And it's one I will never regret, for sure.
So at that first year of college, I mean, were you cheering for that school, or were you just doing staff?
I did staff, and I was
Yeah.
doing my last year of power tumbling.
Okay.
Competitive power tumbling.
Mhm.
So
you weren't, cheering in college at the time then at
no,
all? Okay.
no, I was not cheering in college. Really, what I had stunt wise was from UCA staff, and then you know, anybody that I had met through that. If we ever got together and would stunt around, that was still a thing. You know, you would just stunt for fun. And then the power tumbling that I had, and that I wanted to finish out. And, you know, my parents weren't real knowledgeable, I guess, on, you know, what direction should I go. And because I didn't come from a competitive high school, and all three of the schools that I kept talking about, you know, like, I want to do that. I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they weren't as familiar. So we knew the competitive tumbling route, but not the competitive cheerleading route.
So you meet the legend Myron, and at the time, I mean, Moorhead was, I mean, probably a powerhouse by then. Definitely becoming what?
It was becoming, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Co-ed only though, correct? No all girl at the time.
There was no all girl. No, they just had it was called a varsity and a JV.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, so it was just co-ed.
Mm-hmm.
Co-ed.
How was your first Moorhead tryout? Do you remember it?
I do remember it. Actually, I was very fearful of it, because I was, you know, still preparing for a power tumbling national championship.
Mm-hmm.
And I had sprained my ankle right before a regional championship that I had coming up. And so I was, you know, training there, and I had sprained my ankle, and it was the weekend prior to Moorhead tryouts. And all I kept thinking is, you know, I'm not going to be able to show, you know, what I can do. And being a tumbler then was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the skills that I could do. And so I knew that stunning and all that was still new to me. But tumbling was my strength. And so I was so worried that I wasn't going to be able to show off. And back then you got dressed up in like a full suit for an interview, and I couldn't wear heels because my foot was swollen. But after I did, I believe it was, I think the cheer with the back tuck, and I endured, you know, the pain and all of that. They kind of came over and were like, you know, you're good. We do see you have a pretty good injury. You know, what can, and I was like, no. I want to show one more skill. And then if you'll allow me to step back a little bit, but I want to show, you know, my skills. And so I went and did my one tumbling pass and continued on with the stunning, and they just kind of took back some of the tumbling for me to keep from the pounding. And at the end of it, when I was named, I was so surprised. I was named for the varsity team, and I was so happy and proud, and knew that I still hadn't shown really all that I wanted them to see. So I knew I still had some proving to do. But yes, I was so nervous, even though I felt like I'd made great relationships. I just definitely didn't want to take it for granted at all. So yeah.
So your time at Moorhead starts, and so now I mean, clearly Moorhead is known for their national championships, the competition aspect for it. But Moorhead still has, obviously, commitments to game day. You know, you have to cheer football, got your basketball, all that stuff. So not only are you now having to learn how to do college game day, then obviously preparing for college nationals for the first time. Kind of talk about, you know, how, and then, I mean, even though you grew up in Kentucky and knew about Moorhead, and obviously Moorhead is a smaller town, especially for being a college town. Kind of talk about how was the transition of going to, you know, a bigger school and moving away from home, and kind of having, you know, being a first year, making that varsity team.
Well, I loved it. I was excited to get away from home. I was excited to have that independence, even though I felt like I was going really far away. You know, 45 minutes was not far, but I never you know, I didn't want to go home. I didn't want, you know, I just wanted to be completely sold out into college, probably like most freshmen. They, you know, it's their first time away, they're pumped. And so that was definitely me. I wanted to be the second we could get into the dorm. I wanted to be the first one in. I wanted to get moved in. You know, when can we stunt? When can I go, you know, walk through campus, which is, you know, Moorhead is not a big place at all. Little valley area. But it was, you know, it was an incredible experience. To me, you know, at first it was big, and then it did get, you know, smaller once you learned, you know, all the ways. But as far as getting into practice, you know, my first year as a freshman, there were a lot of older staple people that were there, and so that was very intimidating to see such success. And they were beginning that championship success. They were stunting back then. Like, the stunting was what Moorhead is still known for, is, you know, big stunting. And so that was known, and that was still you know, like, not as familiar to me, and didn't have that experience. And so I was really hungry for it. I wanted to learn it all, and, you know, do everything that I could. And so there were many hours spent out in the lawn, the Weatherby lawn, just stunting until the sun would go down. And if you know anything about Moorhead, there's not a lot else to do. And so, you know, once you figure that out, then stunting is what you do, you know. So now, you know, it's called the Myron Dome practice room, and a lot of people are in there. But, you know, in my days, you didn't really, we didn't go in there very much. We were more outside. If we did go in there, it was usually with Myron. We would go out to the football field, or we would go out to Weatherby lawn. For some reason, that's what we did. So, and we loved every single bit of that. We wanted to be out in that lawn for the rest of the student body, and for other people to pass by and watch what we were doing. So
now,
that's what we did.
Here with Christa Sanford, co-ed coach at the University of Alabama. If for those of us joining us here, at the bottom, if you look, everybody, there's a question mark that looks like a deck of cards. If you tap on that, you can send Christa some questions, and then I will be happy to read those questions to her later when we have our Q&A. So again, if you have any questions for Christa about herself, about the University of Alabama, about the co-ed program, or the program overall, feel free to send us some questions, and she'll be happy to answer that here later during our Q&A. Now, we're at Moorhead. It is her first year at Moorhead. Did you compete your first year?
I did compete and that was, you know, I remember being on stage and looking at it. And it was in San Diego.
Okay, so we're still at SeaWorld.
Yeah, we're still at SeaWorld.
Okay.
And so we're on this raised stage outside, and all I can see is white. Like, I can't remember the crowd, and but I could see Myron's fists pumping in the front. And wow, all I know is it was an incredible experience. We had our signs backwards that year, though. And when we got off stage, it said "Go Blue, big beat cats those," and you could hear the crowd go, "Oh!" And so we're thinking we dropped something. We didn't drop anything, but our signs were backwards. And so when we get off stage, I mean, the disappointment on Myron's face, I'll never forget that either. I remember the white stage. I remember his fist pumping, the crowd going, "Oh," and then off stage when he just looks at us, you know, and we're like, "What happened?" And he's like, "He set out the signs wrong." And, you know, of course, we're all like, "Oh, no," you know. So, but we did win.
Okay.
And, you know, we're not real happy about that, but we can laugh about it because when you go back and look at the video, we're pumping the words the way we think we should be pumping them. But it did not read that way. And the stage was raised, and I had a full that came up the front. And I remember saying, because right before we went, I think it was UNC Charlotte or Chapel Hill, maybe. They were competitive in our division that year, and a guy, he tumbled and flipped off the stage. That's right when Max went right up to the edge of the stage.
Yeah. Yep.
And he went off the stage, and I looked at Myron, and I was like, what if I go off the stage? And he was like, Christa, stop that. You don't put that in your head. You're going to go out there and you're going to be fine. And I think I was supposed to, take a couple of steps, but I certainly didn't. I did like I did it like right there, landed dead center of that stage, because I was not going to go off that stage, because that's what I had seen before. And that, it's my first time on a competitive floor. And all I could think was, this guy just flipped off that stage. And he went back up those steps and continued on his routine. It didn't faze him. And all I could think was, that's what I got to do. I can't go off the stage, and I got to keep going. So
for people that don't, look up the old videos. I remember when I watched the videos of SeaWorld at SeaWorld for high school and college, like, not only could you fall off the stage, if you fell off towards the back, correct me if I'm wrong, you could fall in the water, right? It was.
I don't really remember that part, but you probably could have. It was, when you fell off the stage, you were going off the stage for sure. Yeah,
it was like you could not make any mistakes, or you were literally falling off the stage. Yeah, it was crazy. So how many times did you compete at Moorhead then?
I competed 3. On actually 2 on Coed, 1 on all girl.
Okay.
And I was on the first all girl national championship team in 1998, which, if you know my years, I did have a part where I departed for a little bit and then came back.
Okay.
And I came back on Coed, but then I was working with the all girl, and ended up competing with the all girl that year. And then after that, I had taken a year off just from cheerleading in general at Moorhead, and was just a student at Moorhead. And then the next year is when I went into coaching all girl beside Myron. And definitely, I think those are definitely some years that built me into the coaching aspect of where I am now, for sure.
So when you took that year off, is that the first year All Girl was created, or the year you came back and actually cheered for All Girl, was that the first year of All Girl?
No, All Girl actually started before. It was when it was actually on my stint where I was departed from the university a little bit. And then when I came back, they had been competitive, I think, for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
For 2 years, but had not won a title yet. But they were still, Moorhead is the team that started All Girl. Like, they're one of the teams out there that really started that All Girl era of putting it out there and developing that. And that was something Myron was, he kept talking about how, having the more of the Coed was great, but what about all these people that were coming to tryouts and weren't making it, but yet they were incredibly talented. And so that's where, he really just had a passion for developing another team for cheerleading and for Moorhead State. And so the year that I came, had come back into cheerleading and gone back as a student to Moorhead State, I was on the Coed, but I was helping all girl, and I was very I want to say I was just very firm, and I felt like a standing tuck was something that needed to be a staple for a leading state, all girl team as a staple, as a team to be out there, because we were in the state of Kentucky. Why not? So as we were trying to develop that team, I think we lost a few in that push for those tucks, and that's when he was like, hey, why, you've got a tuck, why don't you compete all girl? And I was like, Myron, I don't know about that. And he was like, why not? What do you, why wouldn't you? That's what you did. And I was like, well, I guess you're right. And then I had my roommate, who was Shay Whitehead. She had competed all these years, was a great partner stunt name back then for a partner stunt. And she was not cheering this specific year and was still a student at the university. And she was like, yeah, I miss it. I would love to be back on the team. And so I was like, why don't you do all girl with me? Let's finish. Let's get in this and do the all girl. And she was like, what? And I'm like, look, I mean, we have the experience of winning and under Myron, like, let's try it. And so I got her on board, and we completely finished out the season. We did, you know, we cheered the basketball, we competed, we won that national championship, and it was incredible, and I have no regrets for it. I learned a lot about all-girl college cheerleading then, just kind of the difference of high school to college and what Myron's vision was for it. And so, yeah, so I also did all-girl.
That was gonna. I was actually gonna go into that. Just, I mean, from what you can remember, what was kind of some of the differences that you quickly found out between being on the co-ed team and being on the all-girl team?
Well, the all-girl personalities are a lot harder than with than it is with the co-ed. So I think, you know, the male aspect, the different personalities of males to females, I think changes it up. But, you know, females are very competitive and competitive with each other. And so, but I also think that's what made us so successful. And so, you know, while it was hardcore in there and hardcore on the team, I think for that first year, Shay and I were definitely leaders in that because we wanted the success and what we knew of the success and what we had learned on the co-ed years of that. We wanted to share that and kind of display that, but yet the team of what they didn't know and what they wanted and what they were hungry for and what they wanted to bring to Moorhead was there. So it was a good, to me, it was a good group. And it was a lot of fun. The skills back then were very basic to what is happening now.
Yeah.
But it was the start for Moorhead All Girl. And I think that's definitely something I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of, you know, that team because I think it continued on from there for sure.
Again, we're here with Christa Sanford, co-ed coach at the University of Alabama. Again, we'll be doing a Q&A here in about 15 minutes. So at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see a question mark that looks like a deck of cards. Just tap on that, send us a question, and Christa will be happy to answer some questions about herself, about the University of Alabama, any questions you may have for her. So you got your undergrad from Moorhead.
Correct.
And what was your degree in? What did you study while you were at Moorhead?
I was university studies. So
okay.
I have a general degree, and actually the story on that, it was psychology.
Okay.
As I was going in, deciding on, you know, those last couple of years, you know, they kind of said, or actually last couple of semesters, they're like, you know, you actually qualify to be out in 2 semesters, or you can continue psychology and be out in 4 semesters. And so that's when I said 2. Yeah, I'll jump on that 2 semester route. So I continued on with the psychology, did a little bit of business, and that did some marketing with the psychology. But ultimately the degree is a university studies degree.
So when did you, I guess, think to yourself, I can maybe make this cheer thing a career? I think maybe, you know, I would like to try to, I think a lot of us, you know, Mark talked about it yesterday and Jomo talked about it last week. I mean, but really every coach that I've interviewed has brought it up that kind of this cheerleading thing just kind of gets its claws into you and you get hooked and you fall in love with it real quick. But there's just not a lot of, especially when we were cheering. You know, I am an early 2000s cheerleader. And so, you know, 15 plus years ago, there wasn't a lot of full-time gigs or anything that you could, you know, make a living unless you were working for varsity or UCA, NCAA at the time. You weren't really, there was no full-time option. So kind of when did it kind of hit you where I want to try to make this cheerleading thing a living?
Well, to be quite honest, it was a dream as a little girl. You know, I would say I wanted to have, because I grew up as a power tumbler, and it was a gym. It wasn't a cheer gym built the way cheer gyms are built now, but it was power tumbling. And so I always said I wanted to have my own gym. And my dad, it's actually very funny. He, you know, to make sure I was going to graduate and keep my focus on a future without cheerleading. He kept telling me, you're not going, you're not going to be a cheerleader the rest of your life. You've got to focus on this. You've got to focus
Yep.
on this. And for some reason, I just never, I was like, no, it's not going to happen, Daddy. I'm going
Yeah.
to figure this out.
Uh-huh.
However, I knew he was very wise, and, I wanted to listen to him. I couldn't let him know I was listening, but, and so I did work for UCA for 13 years. And I was a state director. And at the time, and that was even finishing up my Moorhead years, I was a state director, and I very much valued everything that I learned through UCA.
Because at the time, state directors weren't even a full-time position. I remember,
No, that was a part-time, and I was very blessed to do that while I was a student, and make some very amazing connections through being a college student. What I was learning through that, I don't think I realized that at the time. Now I go back and I'm like, wow, those relationships I still have, and I value so very much. And so I knew that in my heart, that's what I wanted, but what the reality was, I did not know. And then I was actually teaching I was with UCA. I had I was blessed to travel. And so I had visited camps at the University of Alabama, and Debbie Greenwell was running the program there and running the camps there. And I remember saying, I just love Tuscaloosa. I could see myself here one day, having no idea when I said that I would surely end up there. And then I remember this one summer, she said, you might need to, watch what you wish for. And so I'm at a Kentucky, it was called Kentucky Elite then, and I was running that camp for UCA. It was that, anything about that camp, it's an exhausting camp because it's that camp that you look for to teach in the state of Kentucky.
It's basically a preview of high school nationals. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it keeps you on your toes. It makes you better all the way around as an instructor, as a cheerleader, as a coach, everything. And I'm done finishing running that camp, and I go and I sit out in my car, and I've got a call from her. And so I called because I'm thinking, maybe I'm going to go back and do a camp there or something. And she tells me she has a cheer gym, and she's looking for someone to come run it. And would I be interested in moving to Tuscaloosa to run this gym?
Okay.
And that's kind of where I'm like, whoa, could this be for real? And so I just happened to be on the college circuit, which was coming through Tuscaloosa. And that's where I was joining up college camp. And so I came down and had an interview with her and pretty much decided I'm moving to Tuscaloosa. And so that's when I think the actual career started as far as in the cheer gym business, which then a couple years later turned into Shelton State, a phone call from Shelton State. And here I am now, pinch myself again. I'm with the University of Alabama.
So before we get into moving to Tuscaloosa, I'm going to assume for the first time for you out of the state of Kentucky, first time ever leaving. What did you do? So you graduated from Moorhead. Did you?
Correct.
And then as you kind of alluded to, you did coach at Moorhead for a little bit under
Myron.
Under Myron. So talk about that real quick. So really that was, I mean, one of the questions I usually ask is kind of what's your first big break, but obviously for you, you got to coach at Moorhead right away, which is unbelievable. So kind of talk about how long did you do that? Did you coach both co-ed and all girl? I mean, kind of just talk about that experience of working at your mentor, Myron.
It actually started with the 98 year when I had left college and came back, and Myron, my previous time when I kind of stepped away and was trying to figure myself out, he told me, he was like, you'll be back. And and I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm gonna get this all figured out. And he was like, I'll see you again. And he enjoyed saying that because when I did show back up, he did not say I told you so, but he kind of gave me that smirk, that smile that I was like, I know, Myron, I know. You're right. And so then he was like, look, I really, I could use some help in your experience, out doing UCA staff, and you're a little bit older in the program. we need somebody to help with the all-girl. Would you be willing to help me? Because he was in charge of all of it. Plus, he was the dean of students. And so he was,
a lot of people don't know that about Myron, that he was the dean of students at
was
Moorhead.
the dean
And
of
so,
students.
yeah.
And so he was a very busy man. And so taking that on, the 2 cheer teams and everything that entailed, along with being the dean of students for the university, was huge. And so he always had somebody kind of help him. And so he had asked me to help. And so in 98, that started. And so I kind of stayed in it a little bit. I did not work with the Coed because I did not want, well, first of all, that was him. But you also, that team together, like everybody kind of, the leadership and the way we were as a team, nobody needed to have one voice. We all really worked together and very strong voices in there. So definitely not a place for that. But in the old girl, because it was still new and young in its years of a program, I think he was, trying to help the program, but also help us, help us as students grow. And so, so it was in 01 and 02. And when I was not cheering, I was literally a student and an assistant coach. And it was, wow, it was amazing. It was very hard. I think that those years are what kind of made me the firm coach I am, and kind of made me think to stick to what I really think is what I think is best. I need to listen and I need to learn, but I also, I needed to continue to believe in, his vision and learn from that and continue to move forward with that with Moorhead. And the only thing I remember is that there were times when, things were hard and, the team and I we were going back and forth with each other and trying to figure out what works. And so I might have had a reaction that was similar to him, and he would tell me, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, you did.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you did. So why can't I? And he was like, but Christa, that you've got to do you. You've got to figure out what works for you. And I'm like, well, to me, that worked for me. So, so if that worked for me, then I'm just going to share it, because that really should work for them. And so I think that mentoring, I didn't realize it in the moment, because all I wanted to do was be successful for him and for that program. And everyone realized what they were a part of. But now I know that it was so much more than that. And I will forever be thankful for him, for what he taught me, because it was not about the winning, and I say that all the time, is when it came down to, I was saying my goodbyes to Myron. I did not thank him for one national championship. I didn't thank him I thanked him for not giving up and showing us so many values that, you take for granted, that you don't understand as a young person, that you realize later on. And so I'm very happy to have been mentored by him, because I do believe that, that is so very important. And there's no way I could ever fill the shoes that he filled for me. I will continue to work on that, but his shoes were very, very big. So, but yes, that's what I did. I coached at Moorhead.
So then you get this offer to move to Tuscaloosa, and
Yes.
you move down to Alabama. You're running a cheer gym, correct?
Correct. I'm running a cheer gym. At the time, we were called Cheer Authority. Now we're the Ace Cheer Company. Yeah.
Okay. So you are running a cheer gym. No All-Star experience, by the way, also.
No.
Yeah, no, of course not.
That's new.
So kind of talk about that. How was it going from literally your background is power tumbling and college cheerleading to this, at the time, really still is kind of this new, weird, competitive thing called All-Stars?
Yeah, luckily it was new and weird. And that, what I did know was cheerleading, because All-Star definitely was creating itself. And obviously I knew the Brian Ilza and Craig Monty that were Kentucky Elite. And of course, that was blowing up and doing so amazing. And so Tuscaloosa wants to have a gym. And I'm like, yeah, I can get to continue to do cheerleading. I didn't know that I was going to be running necessarily a business. To me, I was doing cheerleading. And then as I'm there and started learning, whoa, you know, there is not a foundation yet. There are no rules. There's nothing to go from. It's just people coming in the door and saying they want to learn. And so then that's when I realized that I had been taught some very, very great lessons and a foundation that I could share to build this gym. And after the first year, and it was a very hard first year, then I felt like maybe we started getting our foot in the door and growing. And at that point, you know, there were not the little competitions in your backyard every weekend. It was, you still went to Orlando every year. And so that was so huge for such a small community. And so some of those kids now I've coached in college. Some of those kids now are, or they work here. They work for me. And so that definitely is wow. Thinking about that's a lot. But yeah, so I knew nothing. I just knew cheerleading and that's what I wanted to do. And it developed into a little bit more business minded. Still more of a passion. I think that I could definitely still develop more business mind with it. But I have just a huge passion for teaching cheerleading. And it comes from what I've been taught and from, you know, Myron, who, and my power tumbling coach, who, you know, taught me so much more than just the skill about it. The dedication and the discipline and, you know, the respect and, you know, the giving back, you know, constantly learning and not taking it for granted. So I think I love that part of it. And then the team aspect, what you can learn from being a part of a team, you know, from your peers.
Again, here with Christa Sanford, University of Alabama. We're about to start our Q&A here in about 5 minutes. But before we do that, you alluded to it. So then you're running a cheer gym for a couple of years, and then kind of talk about how did you get in touch with Shelton State?
Well, I got a phone call. Shelton would come in, like some of their athletes would come into our cheer gym, and I knew some of them. And one of them is actually our all-girl coach at the University of Alabama, Brandon Prince. And he was on Shelton, and they
I didn't know that he cheered at Shelton. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was before like I coached or anything. And so so yeah, he was on there and some other people that came to the gym and they were just getting in and to Shelton. It was not competitive, but they were talented. There were some talented cheerleaders there. And so as they would come in and I would be like, oh, let's try this. And so it kind of went back to my college knowledge. And so I would teach them something new and they're like, oh, we've never done this before. And so I had fun with them. Well, then their coach was on the out. And I think they just kind of put the bug in the ear of the assistant dean of students there. And so I got a call and they went in and they were like, yeah, we're looking for a cheer coach. And they were like, you know, it's going to pay $1,000 per year. Would you do it? And I'm like, well, yeah. You know,
what a deal. Of course I'll do it for $1,000.
Exactly. You know, first of all, you know, we never got into it for the money. So,
nope, never.
So I was like, college cheerleading?
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I would love to. And so that year, I think I had 8 cheerleaders because a lot of people left. Brandon went on to the University of Alabama. A lot of people had moved on. And so I remember having these people and I remember one girl saying, well, I have this guy in my class and he dated a girl and he said that he picked her up before. Can he come to our next practice since we're looking for a few people? And I was like, yeah, you know, he can flip it back tuck and he's picked up a girl before.
Yep.
Sure. Come on in. So, you know, that person comes in. Well, that guy's got a friend who, yeah, he's my best buddy. And he dated a girl too, and he's picked her up. So come on in. And so as we're piecing together this team that year, we start developing a little bit more of a co-ed aspect. And once again, I'm still like, wow, like there's still some talent in our community that I feel like they're onto something. And what I did not know about junior colleges is, you know, they offer to at that time they were offering full tuition and books to athletes and to so many athletes. And I'm just like, this is so great. And I think, I kept putting myself as that young person is while I went on to Morehead State, maybe I would have needed, I did have that reflection point in my life where I needed to step away and find out what I needed to be a better person and a better adult, and to be more disciplined and prioritize better in my life. And maybe this junior college way is a good way. And so then the next year they're like, yeah, we want you back. And I'm like, well, hey, can we get more on this team? And can we do this a little differently? And so they're like, yeah. And I was like, I'd really like to compete. And so I can't remember, honestly, that's bad, if it was that team that started or it was the next year. But I remember the year that we decided we were going to compete. It wasn't that year. It was the next. And we had put it out there. We're going to compete. Then like 25 guys show up at our tryout and like 40 girls. And I'm like, what are all y'all doing here? You know that you're here for Shelton State cheerleading. And there was great talent. And I'm just like blown away, like, wow, this is happening. And so it was the year before. And we did our first year of, the years run together.
Oh, I know. Yes, I know.
So our first year, like we did compete. And then it was the next year that all this talent showed up. And that was the first year that we did win at Shelton State. The first year we got 6th place, which it was 9th place. I'm sorry. It was 9th place. And I was pumped. Like I think there were 12 in the division. We were 9th. We weren't, we went out there. I think we hit our routine, and like I think we had 3 elites. I mean, it was pretty, but they were the team that did it. They're the team that put it out there. And I tell them all the time, and I think they were the team that disliked me the most, but like, you are the ones that started it. Like, I know I was probably the hardest on you, but you're the ones that started it. And then the next year was the year that still no expectation, just going to put together a great routine and hope that we did something great, for Shelton State and for junior college aspect and for these kids. So many of them, we had a large team that year. We had more than, because the first year we competed in the large Coed, but only had 4 guys on the map. I wanted to continue with, large Coed. I thought we were going to do it. And we competed in a large Coed with 4 guys. I don't even think there was small Coed back then. So I think it was small Coed, large Coed combined. So so then that's when it started, was in 2008 was the first championship at Shelton State. And so I was very blessed from that point forward. Yeah, that was when they granted us this picture. None of those banners, we got them all at one time. For all the years, and they had surprised the team that had won the 10th championship in a row, and myself. They walked us into a room and had all these banners hung.
That's
and
so cool.
We didn't know, and they had set all this up, and it was amazing. Like, we didn't even, our mouth hit the floor. We were speechless. We had no idea. It was an incredible moment, for sure.
Here with Christa Sanford, University of Alabama. Just so you know, Christa, even though you said that you were probably going to be, you don't have much to say and you're going to be boring, we're pushing the 1 hour limit where it'll end.
Oh gosh.
No, but we'll come back if we need to. So just if this thing ends in about 10 minutes and we're still talking, because I still want to get to the Q&A for sure. And so you obviously create a dynasty over at Shelton. Shelton has now won 10 in a row, which is unbelievable. But I still remember then the news breaks that you are taking over or coaching at the University of Alabama, which it's Bama. Obviously SEC, great cheerleading history, has won a co-ed before. And as you had already mentioned, Brandon, was Brandon already at Alabama with all girl?
Brandon was already at Alabama.
Okay.
With the all-girl,
yes. Alabama, then I remember that was another big piece of news when Alabama started the all-girl program. And So you've been contacted by Alabama. Kind of talk about that
Yeah.
experience, because even though obviously it's Alabama, when you have the success like you had at Shelton, I'm sure it still wasn't an easy decision. I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, yes, I definitely had like this torn feel, but it was a no. I mean, it was a, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
I had come from Morehead State and Shelton State, who what I knew of those programs were definitely, a lot of competition, but you know, to I always said that, I got my dream to have a cheer gym and to be a college coach. I had no idea my dream was going to get bigger. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that it was going to be even bigger than what it was by going to the University of Alabama. That definitely was never anything I thought I would ever be able
Mm-hmm.
to live today. So yeah, no, it was a no-brainer to me. The hardest part was, filling the shoes of the great coaches, and then, being able to look at that level of cheerleading.
Mm-hmm.
It was very intimidating. And while I feel like I, had been a part of some great things, I still looked, at Alabama like, whoa, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
This is incredible. And then, what I knew from Alabama from the outside, not growing up in the state of Alabama, I already knew it was amazing. But now seeing it through these kids, that this is their dream,
Yeah.
cheering at Alabama is their dream, seeing that through their eyes
Mm-hmm.
has given me a whole new perspective to the University of Alabama, along with just how amazing it's Bama. Just you said it, it's Bama. I mean, it's wow. Yeah, it was a no-brainer. I was like, oh yeah. I mean, I love what's happened at Shelton. I love this, but you know, it's Bama.
What do you feel has been the biggest thing that you learned quickly was the difference between coaching a junior college 2-year program into coaching a bigger, obviously a 4-year program like Alabama?
I think it's more than, at Shelton. Definitely, the building of the kids. They're freshmen and sophomore right out of high school. Um, Getting that experience, learning more about the academic athlete through into like graduation, into master's programs. But then, that sense of tradition and pride that they have coming into the University of Alabama, that while we have traditions at, Morehead State and at Shelton, they're just very different at the
Mm-hmm.
University of Alabama, and it's very, very big. And competition, while is something I've known, that is, that was not as big.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more that is bigger than that competition aspect, and that is what I love about. That's what I love about the University of
Mm-hmm.
Alabama. Here's another thing: is the student life at the University of Alabama is by far the best that I could. If I could go back and be a freshman at the University of Alabama, wow, yeah, God
Mm-hmm.
take it. Like it's absolutely um, an incredible experience. So I think what I like the most is, that I've been able to learn through my first year was the seniors that were going out, but what they had learned over their experience. And I wanted them to lead me through their eyes of their passion at the university, why they went to the University of Alabama, what they've
Mm-hmm.
learned at the University of Alabama, and what they're taking away with them from the University of Alabama. And
Mm-hmm.
those are some of my strongest relationships are the seniors of that year. So, and now I'm finishing my third year at Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
and I have learned so much that, you don't know what's ahead of you to learn next.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely have grown so much over these last 3 years. Um, at Shelton, I was a one man, it was me. But now I'm surrounded by such great leadership and a team of people versus just being that one person. And that's another thing that I didn't realize I missed. I
Mm-hmm.
think I've made a lot of mistakes
Yeah.
by have only have been a one man person, but now the things I've learned by having a great team with Jennifer and Brandon and
Mm-hmm.
our athletic trainer, and now Emily, it was Miss Mary Jo. But just, learning so much has been such a big blessing. And then also the kids themselves have taught me so much about just a different kind of passion and a different kind of pride and tradition that they have as coming into the university.
I did want to say both Alabama Coed and All Girl were absolutely great this year. Holy cow. Very good routines. Unbelievable. You're welcome. They were awesome. I enjoyed watching them. I was there. And I do see Brandon just joined us here. And Brandon, if you're still here, I would love for you to be a guest, buddy. So please send me a message here, and I would love to have you as a guest sometime also to talk about.
I'll make sure you have his contact.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we have about 5 more minutes before the 1 hour limit, but we'll just save the Q&A for the second part.
Okay.
One last thing I did want to talk to you about before we get to that, let me find the picture here, is the opportunity to coach the USA Coed team. So so when you think the dream couldn't get bigger, it gets bigger, in my opinion. I think to be asked to represent your country, to be asked to be a part of this staff is, I think, what every coach should aspire for or take as an unbelievable honor. Talk about how this happened. When did USA Cheer reach out to you? And how has that experience been working with the U.S. Coed national team?
Well, our first year was in 2014. And it was actually after David McDowell he was moving, he had stepped away, and I was very scared because he's incredible. And that call that I got, I was really like, are you sure? There's a lot of great people out there. And of course I wasn't going to say no to that. But I do remember my first year, I don't think I did anything other than pinch myself and say, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's great. Oh yes, that's amazing. Like, I don't know that I offered Leroy any support or help. All I kept, I just was so in awe of the moment and of the athletes and of the experience. And I do remember when I left that experience, I went back to Shelton and we were at tryouts. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't do that? And then I was like, whoa, Christa, come back down. You're back in, get out of that bubble. Go back to the real world. But yeah, that's been an incredible experience, and I hope that we get to continue. But I think I finished, or I would be going on my 7th year, and get to stand alongside the best coaches out there. Some of the best for sure, but ones that I look to as mentors now, people that I look to call and, bounce things off of them and, find out what would you do and how do you feel about this? I get to work beside them in that light and learn from them. And it's definitely one of the most intense growing experiences and surreal experiences that I've ever been a part of, for sure.
Real quick, in a couple minutes, all of your experience, from what I could tell, you've been a head coach. So obviously when you get to the U.S. national team, you have to transition more into an assistant coach role. How was that transition for you?
Great. I mean, first of all, it's Leroy. So I already put him like, oh yeah, you go for it. And I'm going to back you up. But no, it was, especially for that, I felt like I needed to assist. I did not need to lead. I needed to learn, and I needed to grow, and I needed to improve what I could offer and see, where did I really, what could I do for this level of cheerleading. And so I did need leadership. And now, standing beside him, yes, I have things that I offer and that I do for that. But I think for all of us, myself and Leroy and Allie, I think that we all grow each other still. And so I don't look at it, as a step away. I think I'm learning so much. And so it's definitely, it's great. I mean, that's where I want to be. I would not want to be a front runner. I don't think that's going to make me any different to the front runner.
So we are probably about less than a minute before this Instagram live will just automatically shut off. So everybody watching, we're going to end the broadcast, but we will come back. So please join us here in about less than a minute, and we will follow up with Q&A. I took a picture of some of the questions already sent, but if you have any questions for Christa, please send them when we rebroadcast, and we're going to have a little Q&A with Christa Sanford from the University of Alabama. So Christa, I'm going to end it real quick, and then we'll rejoin here in less than a minute.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are back. There's a 1 hour time limit here on Instagram Live, and we were right at the end there. So just wanted to bring back Christa Sanford, head co-ed coach at the University of Alabama. And we're going to bring her back here in a second. Just going to pin the title here. And here we go. All right, got that. Awesome. And let's see here. Christa has not joined us yet. Jalen, that's great. We will definitely ask her that because that's funny. All right, here we go.
What is Jalen saying?
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Jalen says, Christa, I have 2 years of eligibility left. Will you take me back?
Oh, the fact that he wants me, that he would allow me to coach him again, I think I did something right then. That's always a fear, is that, ooh, they've had enough of me. So absolutely, I would take Jalen Davis back in a second.
Jalen, there you go, buddy. If you want to come back, there you go.
I'll let you know what we're doing for tryouts when this crazy thing is over.
So real quick, I see people have joined us. Again, we're going to do our Q&A here. If you asked some questions earlier, I did take a picture of those questions, so I have that. If you have any questions for Christa, please tap on the question mark at the bottom, and type us some questions. Real quick, before we get into Q&A, that's a great thing to bring up. Obviously, with the COVID-19 epidemic that we're all dealing with, all of us college coaches have had to adjust tryouts. How we're going to do that. So if you have that, how would you like to talk about how is the University of Alabama going to be dealing with tryouts this year?
Yeah, we haven't made a person, but we may not be allowed, to be, we may be halted with that. So we just really encourage people that if you do want to be a part of our program, we want you to be a part of our program as well. Just to go ahead and, get the tryout applications and all of that in, and any changes that we can coach her. And so I think that, I would definitely want to help with anything that I can make easier, being that I was learning on my own, and anything that they can jump over and not have to deal with. I want to make it easier, but then, definitely recruit from Shelton State. So I want to have a
Hello, I do not know what happened there. We got cut off. Gotta love relying on technology, but that is what you do in a live show. So again, I have no idea what happened there. No idea. Possibly accidentally pressed end or something on accident, but no big deal.
I don't know.
No idea. No big deal, but that's a live show, and that is technology for you.
That is. But no, so I will help at any time for Shelton State. I'm not in there a lot. I definitely go and show my support. And I will always be a huge fan for Shelton State, for sure.
Again, apologies for that, everybody. No, we don't know what happened there, but hey, again, live show broadcasting.
And my husband, he's the assistant women's basketball coach there. So
oh yeah, that's right.
So I'm also, I'm Shelton by marriage too. So
absolutely. What do you guys look for? What is an Alabama cheerleader? There you go. I mean, what do you look for in a cheerleader? I mean, there's obviously skill, but I say this a lot also for Purdue is like, we're a Big Ten school. We're on TV a lot. We have a lot of engagements we have to do. We're meeting people. What is the embodiment of an Alabama cheerleader for you?
Well, first of all, we want a good person. We want just a good person that wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves and represent something that is so big. So that's important. And you mentioned like it's not all about just the skill. Obviously, that's why you're there, is because you have skills. And then we want the academic. We want you to know what you want to be at, where are you going to grow at the end of all of this, so we want you to have those goals and that future ahead of you, that each year you're getting closer to that that place in your life. And that, I do believe that your college years are your biggest growing years, and they're the most fun. And if I could go back, I would go back to college. Like, there's so much more I feel like I still have to learn from those years of my life. So it's that. But then, when put skill aside, you've got to be a good cheerleader, and a good, genuine, spirited cheerleader, not one that just, is putting it out there because you want to say that. It's just someone who really has a true, genuine passion for being an Alabama cheerleader. And the reason why is because if not, it's going to make you anyway. But it's just, we want that good person. We want that academic student athlete. We want a hard worker and someone that wants to represent and learn and grow. But then just be a good ambassador and leader for our Spirit program, but also for our university.
This is from Bartow Coed, great high school team down in Florida. Congratulations on their national championship this year. What are skills or drills that you could recommend to athletes during this quarantine time? What are things that athletes can do to stay in shape, or if they're a high school senior, to try to get ready for those college tryouts?
Well, that is something that I am brainstorming every day, especially with my gym staff. I've been on calls, even with our team, and saying, what do you need? What do you feel like you can learn from this? Like, where's your weakness? What can we do? So I would say definitely keeping up your strength and keeping up any stamina that you can do, such as running, finding your at-home lifting materials that you can do just to stay strong there and keep your mind clear, to see that, to have that forward thinking of that this is going to go away, and that we are going to be back doing what we do in our everyday life, and that this is just a pause. So I would say getting creative that way. Drills, as far as stunting goes, there's social distancing, so stunting is definitely not a part of social distancing. So I would say, definitely keeping up the strengths, or building your strength, or maintaining your strength in the ways that you need it. And I think everybody is different on that. So, am I stronger upper body or lower body? And if you're both, if you're just a well-rounded person, is maintaining that and trying to improve that, and then getting creative and sharing your creativity, because everybody's in this situation. And so that's what I like about what's going on in our community right now, or in the cheer industry, is everybody's sharing. And so I think that we have learned even more. I don't think we would have learned this much prior to this happening, is what I've learned over the last week of kind of getting outside of our box to learn new things and take a step back to move forward. So I don't know that I really answered your question, but I would say
it's great.
Continuing your endurance and staying strong, and building from there.
I got two more questions. One here is from Lauren Louise. It's actually about ACE. I'm from Pennsylvania, but I will be attending Alabama in the fall. I'm considering joining ACE. So then it kind of cuts off, because if you go too long, it cuts off. But I'm guessing her question is, do you take super seniors on your level 6 team, or do you guys have an open team at ACE?
Sure. Well, we neither our Birmingham or Tuscaloosa has one over this past year, but it's not to say that we wouldn't have one. You're
talking about an open team?
With an open team,
okay.
Correct. But we also, you know, there are warriors in Birmingham who are the level 6, who are
They were excellent this year, by the way.
yes,
Oh,
yes, so good. There's that, but we also have a level 4 team, which these kids also train level 5 and 6 skills. It's just what is best for our community, and we are looking to grow that to a level 5 for
okay.
sure. So she says I have 2 more years of senior eligibility.
There you go, Lauren.
So definitely, I would love to talk to you and see. We have had students do that and have then tried out at the university or have tried out somewhere else in our area, or they've just done it to keep up with, you know, their physical fitness and just their passion for cheerleading. So definitely we, Tuscaloosa or Birmingham would love to talk to her and help her out in that capacity.
And first of all, Lauren, I'm glad we were able to make this connection. Lauren, feel free to just message Christa here on Instagram. I'm sure she'd give you the information on that. But also, you know, one thing that I'll just, since this kind of came up, is do kids out there, don't be afraid to talk to college coaches. Like we don't bite. Like there's nothing to be intimidated about.
Right.
Granted, we might not get back to you right away. Sometimes our lives get hectic, but contact coaches. I mean,